All right, Nuggets fans, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BETONLINE and number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am excited to be here to discussing the Denver Nuggets with you on this Friday morning. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. That would be really appreciated. On this episode, we're going to go over the Denver Nuggets NBA Cup preview and everything about just what's happening for tonight's game, including the fact that Nikola Jokic may not play. He's got some things going on, and we have obviously all the respect in the world for the three-time MVP, and whatever he has is probably more important. So thank you so much for tuning into the show. We'll talk about all of it. Only 2 segments today for sure, but we're going to discuss it all and have a good time, and I'm looking forward to doing it. Really quickly, this podcast is brought to you by the good folks over at BetOnline, the number one source for everything betting, everything sports betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL, and entertainment. Head on over to BetOnline today to get in on the action and with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Once again, I am your host, Ryan Blackburn. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really quickly, if you haven't seen it, I did an interview with Trey Alexander back on Wednesday. Was really good. It was really good content, and I hope that everybody makes sure to check that out. Trey was great, and I'm hoping to normalize things like that, where it's just a really quick pop on for some of these players that are interested in maybe just talking to the audience a little bit. So hopefully that you think that came out pretty good. And we could try to do more things like that in the future. But the only way it happens in the future is if it gets some love on socials. So make sure to let people know that it was good and you'd like more of it. All right. Once again, I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. This is going to be mostly about the NBA Cup and Denver's game tonight against the New Orleans Pelicans. Can the Nuggets win the NBA Cup is the title of this first segment. Just going over and looking at the standings here in the NBA Cup. It's always interesting because obviously Denver hasn't played yet so far in this thing, but it was interesting to monitor things on Tuesday and to see, all right, what's going on around the league right now? Well, one thing that happened, Minnesota lost in Group A. The Suns beat the Utah Jazz in Group B. And then Golden State beat Dallas in Group C. And so those were the only games that happened in the Western Conference. It felt like more games happened in the Eastern Conference. And we're going to get a whole bunch of games tonight for sure on this particular day. If you don't know, every game on Tuesday, every game on Friday is going to be an NBA Cup game for these next few weeks. So make sure that when you're tuning into the schedule, you're going to find out very quickly whether it's an NBA Cup game or not. Also, you'll probably know the courts, the jerseys, everything about it is going to look like, hey, this is a little weird. This is a little odd. Denver's going to wear their squiggly line 5280 jerseys tonight, and or at least that's what I thought that they were wearing. That's what somebody told me yesterday. And if they do wear those, then you're going to know NBA Cup in all likelihood. But Denver's got a nice court for the NBA Cup as well. They've got one of the better ones in the NBA. So obviously these first 2 games that Denver's playing are on the road, and we will see what happens when they actually get home. Cedric immediately diverts the conversation and asks via Super Chat, how would Nick Claxton fit on the Nuggets, Ryan? Let me know. He's a center, man. He'd probably fit poorly. That's my new take. That's my new take on this. If you are a center and you go to the Denver Nuggets and you are not Nikola Jokic, you're probably going to suck. That's a little that's a little over the top, but I think that Denver there's something that's happening with it. I don't understand what happens with the backup center spot, but we're gonna find out, right? Like if Denver has minutes to spare tonight and Jokic isn't going to play, then they're gonna probably play a lot of minutes with a center on the floor. So we'll find out. Is Dario going to play? Is DeAndre going to play? Is Zeke going to play? We're going to see what it looks like. But Claxton, obviously, he'd be good. He's a pretty talented player. If he could catch some lobs and maybe switch on pick and rolls and maybe protect the rim a little bit, then that would be great. And CJ says squiggly lines are topographic map lines. I know what they are. I know what it's supposed to be. But it's funny to call them squiggly lines and make people mad. because it is. And honestly, like it just doesn't look like topography unless you're really thinking about it. And then you realize, okay, so they did jerseys and they did court and they are really tall, like they're really high up there. Like that is the emblematic vision of Nuggets in Denver and things like that, is that they are really tall. They sit really high on the altitude. I just wish that there was something a little bit better. I really do. But look, it is what it is. I was not asked to design it. That's for sure. Back to the NBA Cup, though. Denver's in a situation in this Group C. They are facing Golden State, New Orleans, Memphis, and Dallas. Golden State won their first game, as I mentioned. Dallas lost their first game. And Denver has this opportunity with New Orleans as currently injured as they are to get a win and kick off Group C. And like the hope at this point would be that their point differential, like you could get that thing way up there if you really cared, if you really wanted to, because point differential is one of the tiebreakers after, I think, record and head to head. So point differential is really important in this thing, especially when you're going across groups. I think in general that it really, like, how it feels is going to be like, and how much you care is going to be really tied to like how much you care about the regular season and how much you care about these individual moments that aren't the playoffs. I think that this is pretty cool. I think that this is a pretty interesting opportunity for the NBA to continue to make the regular season interesting again. And that would be important, I think, for the NBA, because if you have paid attention at all during this part of the season to the basketball schedule, a lot of it is about, hey, they're kind of competing with the NFL. Last night, there was exactly one game that was played on a Thursday. They didn't want to compete with Thursday night football. They wanted to make sure that Tuesdays and Fridays are NBA days, are basketball days. And if you know anything about the NFL, outside of Black Friday, which they're now doing, and maybe if they have a Christmas game or something, they don't really play on Tuesdays and Fridays. It's Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays, and then the occasional Saturday game late in the season. So I think the NBA is really just trying to avoid the NFL as much as possible, while also differentiating their product and making it so people are like, all right, we'll see what we're getting into with the NBA Cup. And I've talked about this a lot. I've talked about a lot of different like reasons why this is happening. Suffice to say, like, I think that at this point, the Nuggets, and at this point, any team that is stamped from a championship is probably going to take this a little bit less seriously, or at least the teams that are like have done it over the last few years. The Lakers won it last year, and they were forced to hang a banner in their practice facility, in their arena. I don't remember where it actually is, but they were forced to hang a banner for it. So the NBA wants you to take it seriously if you're an NBA team, if you're an NBA player. Whether you actually do is up to you. And I think we're going to find out just how much Jokic, and maybe not Jokic, but like Murray and Porter and Christian Brown. I'm sure Christian Brown will compete because he's a regular, like he's going to compete in every game. But there's a lot of guys that, like, especially on both sides of the floor tonight, that how much are you really going to care versus the normal regular season game is, I think, a fair question. But in general, it's going to be fascinating to track. The West standings overall, if we just take a step back and we're not looking as much about the in-season tournaments, we're looking at the actual NBA standings. Denver's in a situation right now where there are 4 teams right on their heels, despite them winning 5 games in a row. They're 7-3. OKC is leading the conference at 10-2. Golden State, surprisingly, 9-2. I did not expect Golden State to be as good as they are. Phoenix is 9-3. They've lost a game, their most recent game, and then I think they've come back down to earth a little bit without Kevin Durant. And we'll see when Kevin Durant ultimately gets back. But Denver's at 4. Houston is 8-4. They're 5th. The Lakers are 6th at 7-4. Memphis and Sacramento are tied at 7-5. And it's just fascinating to track this. And with where Denver started, I know most people aren't really doing a whole bunch of standings watching, but it is just kind of fascinating to see where things have broken down so far. The Clippers and the Spurs are tied at 6-6 at 9-10. And then the 2 teams immediately behind them, I guess Minnesota's also tied, but they're technically 11th due to some different tiebreakers. And then Dallas is 5-7, folks. Like, I don't know if you caught last night's game. Luka Doncic did not look like he was playing a whole heck of a lot harder on the defensive end without Kyrie Irving, and with the Mavericks kind of in the situation that they've lost 4 in a row. Timberwolves have lost 3 in a row. These teams aren't necessarily playing their best basketball right now. And actually, that would be kind of an overstatement. They're playing pretty bad basketball. So very interesting to see what it looks like and what the Western Conference is kind of evolving into. But the team that the Nuggets are going to play tonight is last at 3-9, the New Orleans Pelicans. They've lost 6 games in a row. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games. They started off 2-0, and then they got hurt. Half to hell. DeJounte Murray went down. Zion Williamson went down. CJ McCollum, actually, I don't know if CJ McCollum started the year hurt or not, but I know Herb Jones did. Or no, he got hurt pretty early on too. Like, just horrible. Like, the way that things have happened to New Orleans in general, it just sucks. Like, it just happens every year. But it is funny. I'm looking at this Western Conference and I'm looking at the point differentials and I see, holy crap, the top 12 teams in the Western Conference have a positive point differential. If you're looking at ESPN.com. If you're looking at the East, the top 4 teams have a positive point differential. That would be the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are 13-0, Boston Celtics, the Orlando Magic at 7-6, and the New York Knicks at 5-6. The Knicks have gotten the bone up on a couple of blowout-worthy teams, despite the fact that they've also lost 6 games. So it's just crazy, man. Like, seeing that and really trying to appreciate that at the same time it's tough. I'm sure a whole bunch of folks are very confused, very concerned about what's going on. Michael Malone had a good statement about that yesterday when I asked him. I asked him about the disparity between the Western and Eastern Conference, and he said, quote, "This is our landscape. This is our reality. So don't get frustrated. Embrace it and try to put yourself in the best position as possible," which I think after a tough 0-2 start, our guys have kind of settled in and found a nice rhythm. And our hope is we go on this road trip and we continue to play at that level. To me, you play the hand you're dealt, and Denver, obviously, they get dealt a pretty tough hand. They lose KCP in the offseason. That was more of their own volition, of course. But the Western Conference, it just never gets easier. Every year, and it's funny, I was arguing with Matt Moore about this. Every single year, the Eastern Conference finds a way to throw up all over themselves, and the Western Conference is left to be gladiators in the arena. Speaking of a good movie that I'm very excited to watch at some point soon. But it just feels like in the NBA and with the Nuggets and with the Western Conference, it's always just an absolute war trying to get through this thing. And right now, Cleveland is 13-0 in the Eastern Conference. Boston, despite the fact that, hey, they look a little worse, look a little worse. They are 10-3, and they are not in any fear of dropping below second in the Eastern Conference at this point. They are 3 games up on the next best team. And Denver, despite the fact that they've won 5 in a row, they are technically 1 game up on 8th. They're 2 losses up on 8th. But like they've played 2 games, and if you slip, you're going to fall. You're going to fall on the standings, and that's just how the Western Conference is. So it's tough, folks. I think that Denver, they have to take these games seriously for that reason. If they don't take them seriously, then they are going to get burned. And it's why this road trip and why the NBA Cup, like these are games that matter, despite the fact that they aren't like you may not care for the cup, but you have to care for the standings. You just do. And if Denver does lose, you could find yourself out of the playoffs in a very, very brief amount of time. Now, it's harder to make that argument when you're 10 games into the season, so hopefully the Nuggets don't need a whole bunch of internal motivation or external motivating factors. But I really do think that if Denver can continue the hot play that they have been putting out there so far, they're going to really benefit. You got to bank as many wins as possible, and the hope is that they continue to find ways to succeed. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to go over to Nuggets Pelicans. We're going to talk about Nikola Jokic and how he is questionable, and I am very curious to see what everybody thinks about the game tonight. Who should start if Jokic does not play? Who should start in place of Nikola Jokic? We will be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. But first, I got to tell everybody about number 38. They are continuing to do watch parties for us here at Mile High Sports. Done a lot of great collaborations for the CU games as they've been going out. CU has been great this year. They've been a lot of fun, and the environment over at number 38 is always very good. I always enjoy it. This next one is going to be on my brother's birthday, so I'm not going to be able to go down. But I do want to get down there for, hey, if the CU actually if they make the conference championship for the Big 12, I want to be there at number 38, getting some good food, some good drinks, some good vibes. Watching on a 200-inch screen outside would be sick. Let me know if you guys are interested in going down to number 38, and let them know that you came from Mile High Sports. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast, folks. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. Only doing 2 segments today. I wanted to make sure to cover those topics specifically. Wanted to talk about the standings, where Denver's at. If you want some written content on this Nuggets Pelicans game, make sure to go over to milehighsports.com. I just wrote the what to watch for piece. I missed a couple when Denver was first getting back at home, but I'm back on track, trying to get one of those out for every single game so that people have kind of a companion article piece from me on that front. But yeah, it's going to be fun, going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to this Nuggets game tonight. Denver hasn't played in a long time. It's been nice, just from a personal perspective. It's been nice to kind of be able to take a step back after they're at home for 5 straight games. Just the actual trek that you have to do, especially when there's snow on the ground, and especially when it's crazy weather, it can be pretty stressful if you're doing it over and over and over again. So it's all good. I'm excited to see how Denver responds on the road. Jokic is questionable for this Nuggets-Pelicans game, and it's why I have Nuggets versus Pelicans equals trap game. Even if Jokic does play, like, I'm sure his mind is probably not going to be fully on basketball. If you don't know, Natalia is pregnant. I believe that the reason why Jokic is questionable for personal reasons and not out for personal reasons is because they think the baby might come at some point soon. They're not sure exactly when, and then we'll probably try to get that picture as soon as we possibly can. But it is interesting to see what will ultimately happen there and how the Nuggets are going to handle it. Obviously, you want him present for the birth of his child. That's not. This is not a. This is a no brainer, if you know what I mean. So I'm very curious to see how the Nuggets handle his absence if he's not there. Like I asked prior to the break, who do you think should start in place of Jokic if he does not play? Obviously, I think you've got Jamal Murray in the lineup, you've got Christian Brown, you've got Michael Porter, you've got Peyton Watson, you've got two defensive guys, two offensive guys. You probably need a rim roller. You need somebody to kind of anchor the defense a little bit. Doesn't sound like Dario. Doesn't sound like Dario to me. But you also could use some playmaking and some of the actual creation that the Jokic does on a consistent basis. Somebody who could be the DHO hub, and that sounds a lot more like Dario. There's an argument to be giving Zeke Naji those minutes where he has been getting mostly like 8 to 10 minutes every single game. It has not been a great Zeke Naji experience, although Michael Malone said, yeah, he's going to keep getting an opportunity. So seems like he's going to be an option. I also think that in years past, DeAndre Jordan has been the guy for Denver in this particular situation. And so I'm curious to see how they ultimately handle it and who's going to be the guy. In a lot of these situations, Aaron Gordon would be one of those guys that could eventually slide to the center spot and probably close in some of those lineups. You don't necessarily want either Zeke or Dario or DJ on the line in closing time. And so Aaron Gordon would be the guy, but he is not available either. So maybe it's Vlatko. Vlatko's coming back from injury. Maybe he's an opportunity. He is an opportunity for Denver. Roy says the Pelicans rookie center has to be relieved. I'm not sure what relieved means in this case, but he's been really good. Yves Missi, he was great. He was great against Brooklyn. And I didn't actually watch the Pelicans Thunder game, but I know the Pelicans lost by like close to 20 points. But I do know that in that particular situation against Brooklyn, Yves Missi was really good, and then they did not have a guy that could consistently get him the ball down the stretch. I know this because I made a bet, and it did not work out. But it was just funny. It's funny in that situation to monitor like what other teams are doing in the clutch when a guy like Yves Missi has 17 points on 7 of 8 from the field, and you're like, you know what? Brandon Ingram's going to take a mid-range jumper. Brandon Boston Jr. is going to take a pull-up 3. Denver has guys in Peyton Watson and Christian Brown and Michael Porter on occasion that can get a stop in those moments and can really be disruptive. So I'm curious to see whether they can avoid these massive performances, these scoring and playmaking performances that could flip a game like this one. But if one of those guys goes off, or if it's Jalen Noel off the bench, who's gone off in the past against Denver, if it's Trey Murphy, who when he comes, like he's back, he started in this last game, he has been a guy that's been a thorn in Denver's side as well. So I think that all these guys are talented, despite the fact that the Pelicans are missing. Here, let me pull up my list here real quick of the guys that the Pelicans are missing. Zion Williamson, DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, and Jordan Hawkins. Good Lord, that is a good rotation of players. that could be a starting unit, man. Like, honestly, I'm not like a starting unit and a 6-man. All those guys have killed Denver in the past. All those guys have done like pretty amazing things in their career so far. So Denver, they're kind of lucking out. If we're being honest, they're kind of lucking out that they do not have to play so many of those guys. And if there was a game for Jokic to miss, it would probably be this one against the Pelicans. And yet, you don't want him to miss any if you can help it. So I'm curious to see how they handle it. I'm curious to see who steps up in his absence. Is this a Jamal Murray game? It doesn't look like they're going to be a lot of perimeter defenders on the Pelicans. Like Javonte Green is out there. Brandon Boston Jr. is out there. Brandon Ingram and Trey Murphy are out there. If you're Jamal, like this is your time. This is your time to really shine and look pretty good, creating good shots for yourself and other people. There shouldn't be any situation where he's slowed down by this particular mix. Westbrook should also have plenty of opportunities as both a scorer and a playmaker in this one. And it wouldn't surprise me, hey, if you're looking for an outside bet, Russell Westbrook triple-double, could he get it this time? Maybe. It wouldn't surprise me if he closes a game next to Jamal and Christian Brown and Michael Porter and Peyton Watson, and they go really small. That would not surprise me at all. But I do think that Denver has an opportunity to win this one. It may not look perfect, and it may be a trap game. Like there's no doubt about it. But if Denver has any care in the world for the NBA Cup, for this particular tournament, if they want to go to Vegas, that should be the opportunity that everybody's looking for and that Jokic is looking for. Hey, you get to go to Vegas for a week. Like, how sick would that be? So I think there's a world where it is something that could really benefit the team and something that, like, if they care about it, then would be really fun, at least really fun to track. Now, last year, Indiana made the NBA Cup championship, and then they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers ran into Denver in the first round. We know how that worked out. The Pacers made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, they didn't win it. They ran into Boston. So it's not to say that, like, if you win in the NBA Cup, then you're going to lose in the playoffs or anything like that. It's just a different thing. I don't necessarily want to make it a thing where, oh yeah, just because the Celtics and the Nuggets and the OKC Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves didn't make it last year, it doesn't mean that it didn't mean anything. It's that it was just a separate thing early in the season that people got to have fun with. So hopefully Denver can find a way to win this. It would be pretty cool to see them go to Vegas and to see them have an opportunity here, but I don't know. We're gonna find out together. Any other points that people want to discuss about this particular game? I'm very curious to see what people have tonight. Martin says, I'd love to see Jamal get right and have Dario rebuild some confidence. I would too. And Michael Malone talked about that on Thursday. He said, hey, we've had discussions internally, the coaching staff, about when to get Dario back out there. They're probably not going to do it unless Jokic is out, but that would be a perfect excuse, right? Jokic is out. Zeke Naji may start, or maybe Dario starts, and you get them extended minutes just to kind of work through some things and say, hey, look, you're not going to get yanked for the MVP. Like, the MVP is not coming for this particular one. So let's see what you can do. Let's work through some things. Let's try to work through some things with this group together, and hopefully there's an opportunity to do that. But I'm curious to see how he handles it. I'm curious to see how the Nuggets handle it. It'll be interesting. How would you feel about Nick Richards and Cody Martin in terms of like a trade for, like, with Charlotte? It's fine. Like, I've seen a lot. I've clamored for Nick Richards before too. I've clamored for Cody Martin before. I'm not necessarily of the mind that Nick Richards is going to solve anything for Denver. He's just another option. Now, he's a better athletic option, I think, than DeAndre Jordan is, and the Nuggets need an athletic roller. At least that's what we have come to understand and expect from Denver second units. If they could get somebody that could give them, like, the occasional bench double-double, where they get like 12 points, 10 rebounds off the bench, and maybe a couple blocks, how sick would that be? That would be great. I would prefer, personally, for Dario to just get back on track. And that would be the first thing that I tried to do if I was the Nuggets. But if it's unable to happen, if the Nuggets are just not in that situation and they need somebody different, Nick Richards would be great. So in terms of how they could acquire Nick Richards or Cody Martin, I don't know. Like, here's the thing. If you're trying to acquire Nick Richards, it probably means that you're trying to trade away Zeke Naji or Dario Saric. And it just I would not be expecting Charlotte to be like, you know what? Yeah, we absolutely want to um we absolutely want to trade for those guys. I don't think that Charlotte is jumping for joy trying to trade for Dario or Zeke for with Nick Richards, somebody who they're familiar with. So, but who knows? Maybe that's wrong. Maybe Denver just attaches a pick and they'll be fine. What is going on in the comments? You know what? I don't care. All right. Yeah, nothing else major to talk about for sure. I do think that the Nuggets are. I do think the Nuggets are in a good position where they could continue this win streak. If they don't be surprised. I think in general that at this point the Nuggets are kind of back on track. We'll see whether 4 days off kind of takes them out of rhythm. If not having Jokic takes them completely out of rhythm. Here's one more stat that I think I should probably throw out there just so that people know. Not a fun stat. The Nuggets are a minus 69 in the 109 minutes, I believe, that Nikola Jokic has had so far this year. Minus 69 in 109 minutes. If I go to the on-off advanced, that is a negative 28.5 net rating. They have an offensive rating of 81 when Jokic sits. That is not good enough, folks. So, look, however they get it done, I don't really care. However they find a way to score, they've got to find a way. It can't just all be Jokic. It can't. That's not it's not reasonable for anybody. So, look, Jamal's got to get going. Mike can get going. He could get Denver 20 to 25 points in this matchup, I think. Murray should be able to go for like 25 and 5 if he has an opportunity to really handle the ball, but we'll see what happens. Cedric asks, Ryan, how many other cup games do we have after this? There's 4 total cup games in the qualifying rounds, and then if Denver does advance, then there will be an 8-team quarterfinal, semifinal, final bracket that comes from that. So at max, it is 7 total games. If Denver doesn't make it to the quarterfinal, then they will have 2 more games just naturally put on the schedule. So that'll be all that is. But yeah, that's all I have, folks. That is all I have for this particular episode of Pickaxe and Roll. Could Jokic miss tonight's game? Maybe. We'll see what happens. We'll see if he has the baby on the way. If not, then he'll play, and hopefully the Nuggets can roll. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast, folks. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Would really, really appreciate it. Make sure to have a good weekend. I'm going to be back tomorrow, just so that everybody knows. I'll be back tomorrow with a recap episode for what happens in tonight's game. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll talk to you guys very soon.